Chaos in the Kingdom. Dear friends, in the previous story, we saw David who caused problems in his household by displeasing the Lord, right? In today's story, we will see what problems it caused. By this time, David had 19 sons and their sister Tamar from many wives. David's first son was Amnon, second was Gilead or Daniel, third was Absalom, and fourth was Adonijah. The sister Tamar was the daughter of Absalom's mother. The feelings that David's firstborn Amnon had to his sister Tamar was not brotherly affection. Being unable to control the feelings that he had for Tamar, he prepared a trap and brought Tamar to himself. He did not listen to Tamar's pleas and forcefully lay with her. Then he called one of his young men and put her out. Absalom, who came to know of what happened from Tamar, who was distressed, comforted her. And Tamar lived in the house of her brother Absalom, a desolate woman. Though he comforted his sister, Absalom kept his hatred toward Amnon in his heart. But he did not speak anything to Amnon, either good or bad. When the king heard of this, he was furious. But David did not do anything against Amnon. 2 years after this, Absalom had a shearing festival at Baal-Hazor in Ephraim. We have seen a few years back in Carmel, a rich man Nabal conducted such a festival, and when David's men came asking for help, he sent them away empty-handed. Absalom also invited many people to this festival. His brothers were also invited. Then he went to invite King David, but David lovingly refused. But when Absalom insisted, he sent Amnon and the rest of the king's sons with him. Then, according to Absalom's command, his men struck down Amnon when his heart was merry with wine. So Absalom took revenge on Amnon for molesting his sister Tamar. And then Absalom fled from there and went to his mother's father Talmai, the king of Geshur. He stayed there for 3 years. And the spirit of the king longed to go to Absalom, for he was consoled concerning Amnon's death. So Joab interfered and brought Absalom back. But Absalom, who returned, did not get permission to see David. David did not allow it. So Absalom went to his house. He did not see the king's face. Absalom lived 2 years in Jerusalem without seeing the king's face. He was not willing to continue like that anymore. He summoned Joab. He asked why he came from Geshur if he could not see the king's face. Joab went to the king and told him this. Then the king summoned Absalom, and he came in and bowed down with his face to the ground before the king. And the king kissed Absalom. Since then, Absalom eyed the throne. His further efforts were towards that goal. As much as he was handsome, he also had a velvet tongue. He would get up early and stand by the side of the road leading to the city gate. Whenever anyone came with a complaint to be placed before the king for the decision, Absalom would talk to them and provide a solution for their problem. Absalom behaved like this towards all the Israelites who came to the king asking for justice, and so stole the heart of the men of Israel. David did not know any of this. At the end of 4 years, Absalom asked the king for permission to go to Hebron to fulfill a vow he made to the Lord. The king sent him in peace. But Absalom had secretly sent messengers throughout all Israel, and many people accompanied him, and he became king over them in Hebron. He also sent for Ahithophel, David's counselor. It might be because David molested his granddaughter Bathsheba that Ahithophel left David and sided with Absalom this time. Thus, Absalom's conspiracy gained strength, and his following kept on increasing. David, who knew that the hearts of the men of Israel were with Absalom, decided to flee from there with his servants. Thus the king and his household set out from there. But he kept 10 concubines to take care of the palace. The priests, Zadok and Abiathar, came behind him, carrying the ark of God. But David did not let them come with him. As per David's command, they went back to Jerusalem. It was also to get information about Absalom's plans that David sent the men back. He appointed Ahimaaz son of Zadok and Jonathan son of Abiathar for this. By this time, Absalom, Ahithophel, and the rest of the Israelites had returned to Jerusalem from Hebron. On David's request, his friend Hushai came to Absalom, pretending to be on his side. Absalom was making plans to defeat his father. Like David, Absalom too considered Ahithophel's advice as a word from God. So he first asked suggestions from Ahithophel. Ahithophel's first advice was to sleep with David's concubines, whom he left to take care of the palace publicly. Absalom followed that, and all Israel knew that he made himself a stench in David's nostrils. The next plan was against David. Ahithophel told Absalom that he would choose 12,000 men and set out that night in pursuit of David. But this time Absalom asked for Hushai's advice too. Hushai, however, had planned to save David. So, instead of gathering 12,000 men and going out immediately, he advised him to gather all Israel from Dan to Beersheba and set out against David. Hushai calculated that there would be time enough for David to escape while Absalom gathers the men. Hushai informed both suggestions to Zadok and Abiathar. They informed David of this to Jonathan and Ahimaaz. David and his men, who heard of this, crossed the Jordan before daybreak. When Ahithophel saw that his advice had not been followed, he saddled his donkey and set out for his hometown. He put his house in order and then hanged himself. Meanwhile, David crossed the Jordan and reached Mahanaim. Then Absalom and his men also crossed the Jordan and encamped in the land of Gilead. Absalom made Joab's cousin Amasa commander in place of Joab, and David divided his men into 3 groups, a third under Joab, a third under Joab's brother Abishai, and a third under Ittai the Gittite. They did not let David join them in battle for the sake of his safety. However, before the battle began, the king commanded them to deal gently with Absalom for his sake. All the people heard this command. Then they set out against Israel. Israel was defeated by David's men. Now Absalom happened to meet David's men, and Absalom fled on his mule. When Absalom was riding on his mule, the mule went under the thick branches of a great oak, and his head caught fast in the oak, and he was suspended between heaven and earth, while the mule that was under him went on. A man who saw Absalom hanging on the tree remembered David's words and did not touch him. He informed this to Joab. Without wasting time, Joab thrust his javelins into Absalom's heart while he was hanging on the oak. And 10 of Joab's armor-bearers surrounded Absalom and struck him and killed him. Then Joab blew the trumpet and stopped the battle. They threw Absalom into a great pit in the forest and raised over him a very great heap of stones. All Israel fled, everyone to his own house. Even though he won the battle, David grieved at the death of his son, so no one was able to rejoice in the victory. David did not appreciate his men. Then, on Joab's request, the king took his seat in the gate, and all the people came before the king. The Israelites who fled argued with each other. They remembered all the good that David had done for them and rescued them from their enemies. They wanted to bring David back. The priests, Zadok and Abiathar, sided with them. David also sent messengers to the elders of Judah. He swayed the hearts of the men of Judah as one man. They told the king to return. Thus David returned and reached the Jordan. And Judah came to Gilgal to meet the king, and to bring the king over the Jordan. All the people of Judah and also half the people of Israel brought the king on his way. The urgency shown by the people of Judah in bringing the king back irritated the rest of Israel. They were angry at the elders of Judah because of this. Judah was not ready to back down. That led to another problem. We will see what problem this argument caused in the next story. God bless you.